Let's check out some Steam Deck prototypes. How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Deck Ready, the channel all about the Steam Deck. You know the drill, I'm back with some news updates on my Steam Deck, and there's some cool stuff to talk about, as there usually is. But before we jump into it, I wanted to ask you guys, first of all, if you haven't subscribed yet, to click the red subscribe button below and maybe set your notifications to all. And I also wanted to let you know that I have a bunch of Steam Deck accessories, like anything you could think of, from a dock all the way up to a keyboard and mouse, linked in the description. If you use those links, I get a little bit of a kickback, and I can buy more games on my Steam Deck. So use those links if you need anything. The first news story today I have for you guys is that the Steam Deck has completely overtaken Japan. Yes, during the Tokyo Game Show right now, there is a booth for the Steam Deck, and there are about 28 different games there. But first of all, we got to talk about how cool the actual booth itself is. They built a massive, like an absolutely massive Steam Deck to hang over the booth, and it looks incredible. The official On Deck JP account tweeted out some pictures of this thing being built, and seeing a guy standing next to it. The official Steam Deck Japan account tweeted out some pics of this thing being built, and that's what really shows off the scale of this giant Steam Deck, because there's a guy standing on a ladder working on one of the joysticks, and the joystick, like looking at it pretty close here, and the joystick is like bigger than the guy's head. So if you want to know some scale, check out the image that I have that I'm using as B-roll right now, because yes, this is a huge Steam Deck. Another cool thing about the Steam Deck and Valve being at Tokyo Game Show is that they've invented an actual character to represent what the Steam Deck was called when it first leaked. It used to be called the Steam Pal, and they made the Steam Pal. It's an adorable little person with the Steam Deck as a head, and they've got a little bow on top, so maybe they're a girl. I don't know. They got a cute little Japanese outfit, and I would do some crazy things to get my hands on one of these keychains. I've seen my friend Fan the Deck trying his best to get one, and yeah, I totally understand why, because it's so cute. I like that they're being playful here, and they've invented a real character out of this prototype name that we heard so long ago when this thing leaked. I remember where I was. It's one of those things. I was like in my office and I was reading about it, and I was like, there's no way. There's no way Valve is making a handheld PC. It just seems too good to be true. It's exactly what I've always wanted, and like just that fact alone is like enough to make me go, that'll never happen. But here we are, like over a year later, I want to say, and the Steam Deck is not only real and not only lived up to my expectations, it exceeded them, and it's just awesome. It's a great device. I'm playing through Cult of the Lamb now because it is finally fixed. That stutter that happened every 10 seconds is gone. I saw a Reddit user figured out that you basically had to mess with the cores that were being used in Cult of the Lamb, and once that was figured out, I guess the devs implemented the fix pretty quickly, because the game runs great now, and it's a perfect game at 40 FPS, 40 frames per second. But interestingly enough, it is not one of the 28 games that are being shown off on the Steam Deck at Tokyo Game Show. And I'm just going to read through the list. I'll do it as quick as I can, but you'll see why in a second. So at Tokyo Game Show, you can play games like Ace Combat 7, Devil May Cry, Aperture Death Job, Apex Legends, Core Keeper, Danganronpa 2, Death Stranding Director's Cut, DMC 5, Elden Ring, Final Fantasy 7 Remake, Hades, Hatsune Miku, Project Diva, Megamix, plus Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, Spider-Man Remastered, Melty Blood Type Lumina, No Man's Sky, Persona 4 Golden, Power Wash Simulator, Scarlet Nexus, Sonic Origins, Stardew Valley, Stray, Tales of Arise, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Shredder's Revenge, and Yakuza Like a Dragon. Now, the reason I read that entire list is because this is like a top 28 games of the games that you need to buy on your Steam Deck. I'm missing a few of them, like Hatsune Miku. I've never heard of Melty Blood, but blood in the name makes it seem like something I specifically would really be into. And Danganronpa I don't have on Steam just because I played it back when it came out on the Vita. I was a big Vita guy back in the day. But yeah, I'm proud to say that I have experienced trying out a lot of these games. One that really impressed me was Apex Legends. Like, out of all the battle royales you have at your disposal to play on the Steam Deck, this is the easiest one to get into, and it runs so incredibly well. I tried out Fortnite on the Windows install on my Steam Deck that I have with the micro SD card. It wasn't a great experience overall, and even Destiny 2 wasn't that great just because I think I was running it off a micro SD card. So I would stick to a lot of these games. Like, specifically, if you've never played Devil May Cry 5, that is a game that everyone needs to check out. It's made in the RE engine. There's a great character named V in it that, like, you can guess who he is, but playing as him is really cool because he uses a cane, which I think is sweet. You also get to play as Dante. They did a kind of a redesign on Nero and made him much cooler. That game just like is oozing style. I absolutely loved it when it came out, and I play it all the time, and it's an incredible experience on Steam Deck, mainly because you're mostly fighting in enclosed spaces. So like, yeah, you're running down corridors, you're fighting in enclosed spaces. It's a great experience on the Steam Deck, and it makes sense that it's one of the games they showed off leading up to this device's release. I will say I'm a little bit surprised that they're not showing off games like Doom Eternal and Control or even Ghost Runner, because those games were all very prominently featured leading up to the Steam Deck's release. But these 28 games, they're all games for the most part that I've played and had a great time with. So if you're looking for a list of games to check out, check these out. And it's just cool to see the Steam Deck having this much representation at Tokyo Game Show. It's a big show that I used to stay up super late for when I was in college, and I had my blog where I wrote up Vita news stories, and it was because that's where they always announce new Vita stuff. They'd be like, yeah, we're not announcing anything important here at this Sony opening night event for Tokyo Game Show, and that just proved how little they cared about the Vita. Because I remember to this day, when they announced that was the night they announced the Vita Slim, and I stayed up super late that night with my friend Craig playing Diablo 3 or something like that, or maybe Rust, and then I was like, I'll check out the Sony event, and there we go. They announced the Vita. I got my news story up before anyone else, and I actually got sourced by some big websites. So Tokyo Game Show has a very special place in my heart. It's a show I would absolutely love to go to, and yeah, seeing handheld PCs there is not something I expected, but it's something that I think is really cool. And honestly, I'm curious if as time goes on and these shows keep happening and the Steam Deck gets more and more ubiquitous there, if we'll start seeing maybe Aya Neo or One X Player having their own booths at these events showing off their devices. Now, I'm going to be real, I wasn't super impressed with the Aya Neo Air. I didn't think it really lived up to the performance standards I was looking for, and the fact that the OLED screen looks great is totally hampered by the fact that it's 1080p. You're not going to be playing many games at 1080p, and it does not rescale right. I have heard every review pretty much mention that if you change the scaling or the resolution, it screws with the iSpace app and the overall scaling of the device. I can confirm that happened to me, so yeah, I was a little iffy on that device, but I feel like they're getting closer and closer to having a really good, in the same price range, Steam Deck competitor. The one option that I think I was a little unfair to now that I've played with it more is the One X Player Mini. I have the one with the Ryzen 7 5800U in it, and I looked at it in a video before and I thought it was pretty cool, but after using the kind of bloated experience on the Aya and then going back to this, everything just works. There's a keyboard button. When you hold it, it turns the left joystick into a mouse, and A and B are the right and left click. Reverse that. A is the left click and B is the right click. Sorry, I got confused there. And it just works. Like, everything works how you'd expect. The battery life is honestly pretty good. The only gripe I have is that it's a little thick in the middle and the fan gets kind of loud. But if you're looking for a super powered Steam Deck competitor that's not quite as powerful as the Steam Deck, I think that's probably a good option for you. And I know you're saying I'm biased because it's black and orange and I love Halloween, and to that I say no comment. And the last news story I have for you guys today is kind of tied to TGS, because leading up to this, we got that whole info dump on how the Steam Deck was made, thanks to the book that Valve made. And one of the coolest things that's been showed off leading up to this event is a whole bunch of working prototypes of the Steam Deck. This is coming from Pierre. I'm not going to say his last name, or I'll attempt it. It's Pierre Lou Griffey. I'm sure that's wrong. This guy is like instrumental to the Steam Deck's development. I've heard that so many times from so many different people. The last time I heard it, where it really stood out to me, was on the Friends Per Second podcast. During the interview with Lawrence, he said that this guy was like instrumental in its development, and that people were taking home different prototypes because this thing was developed while everyone was at home, and they were kind of all sharing their feedback after playing with different models. And I was like, man, I wonder how many prototypes they had. And now we have pictures that show about 5 different prototypes leading up to the Steam Deck that we know and love. And honestly, there's one that I would love to hear what went wrong with. It's the one situated right in the middle. Not only to my eye is it the smallest of these prototypes, it also is kind of the sleekest, with all of the buttons being a little bit closer together, pretty much the same layout as the Steam Deck we ultimately got. But instead of having square touchpads, the touchpads on this thing are circles. And again, I would love to hear what went wrong with this prototype, because this one looks really cool. I'm assuming it's because of ergonomics, and they found that it maybe didn't fit as well into people's hands as the ultimate final final Steam Deck, which is the one that we all have. And I will say, from all the handhelds that I've used, like the Aya Neo Air, the Aya Neo Next, the One X Player Mini, the Nintendo Switch OLED, the Steam Deck is far and away the most comfortable one of the bunch. It's not as heavy as it looks. It seems like it's bigger than it needs to be, and that's great because it fits perfectly into my giant hands. I love the design we got. I'm just interested in that design because it looks a little more like, I don't know. Basically what I'm trying to say is if you put the Steam Deck we got next to this Steam Deck, the one that's in the middle, the one that's in the middle is one that I would assume is the one that shipped, mainly because, again, it's smaller, right? When you see something that's smaller than another device, you would say, oh, maybe they shrunk down the parts a little bit and got it into a smaller chassis, but no. They actually started with a device that size, made a bigger one that's kind of exactly the same size-ish as the current Steam Deck, then they went back to the small size, and then the next two prototypes were the bigger size, and the second to last prototype seems to be the one that's closest to what we got. It's super interesting. I hope you guys are as interested in seeing stuff like this as I am, because we never really get a look behind the closed doors or a look behind the curtain at how consoles are made or how many prototypes there are. I would personally love to see a prototype of the PlayStation 5. The device we ultimately got seems kind of crazy, like with how tall it is, how wide it is sitting down. I'd love to see how they got to that sort of like finned look, that flowy look that we have with the side plates. And also I'd love to see at what point in development they decided they were going to do a disk driveless model. You know, there's a ton of cool stuff there. And as we're seeing, there's nothing really holding these companies back from showing us these prototypes, other than maybe they're trying to save themselves some embarrassment. Like, I don't know, if they made one that people really ultimately liked way more than the one they got, and then that would negatively affect their decision to buy that device. I don't know. It's just really interesting overall for me to see stuff like this. And I would love to hold that middle Steam Deck. I just want to see how it feels in my hand, because I have a feeling that we would immediately be like, oh, this is why they didn't go with it. I mean, one thing I can just pick out looking at the image is that a lot of the buttons are cramped together and the joysticks are much, much smaller. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for you in today's Steam Deck update. I'm definitely going to play around more with the One X Player Mini. I want to see how it runs games like Destiny 2 some more, and Elden Ring, and Cyberpunk 2077. And speaking of Cyberpunk 2077, I'm crossing my fingers that we get that AMD FSR 2.0 update sooner rather than later, because after watching Edge Runners, I have been playing so much Cyberpunk on my PC and my Steam Deck, but FSR 2.0 looks so much better than 1.0 that I want it. I want it now.